make sure that we're getting your name absolutely right.
Angel Gurria. It's been 15 years of non-stop learning for me. This sense of awe in the organization, in its people, in what they have been able to achieve, but also of what they can achieve going forward. This is probably the feeling that comes back again and again, every day.
Seit ihrer Gründung vor 60 Jahren gilt für die OECD kein geringerer Maßstab als eine bessere Politik für ein besseres Leben. Dazu drängt sie als politischer Ratgeber. Dazu dient sie als Wegbereiter für internationale Standards. Und dazu gibt sie Impulse als Wissensplattform, die Best-Practice-Vergleiche erlaubt.
Because of your thoughtful and careful research and analysis, the health, the welfare, the education, and the environment of untold millions of people is better. Now, you have achieved this through a set of values that have stood the test of time.
OECD의 활동으로 세계는 더 공정해지고 투명해졌습니다. 한국 역시 OECD가 추구해온 민주주의와 인권, 시장경제와 개방경제라는 보편의 가치를 실천하며 성공 사례를 만들어 왔습니다.
As I said many years ago, the OECD is not the club of the rich countries. It's the club of the good practices.
L'OCDE a su s'adapter aux nouveaux enjeux, le changement climatique, la digitalisation, la fiscalité internationale sont autant de défis qu'il faudra prendre à bras le corps.
In the beginning of my mandate, we had a big crisis. And at the end of my mandate, I am departing with the largest, most global, most terrible crisis ever. Frankly, it is something that tested the OECD. And we came up with the goods. The OECD has remained relevant, more impactful, more influential than it ever was, in that it's gone from crisis to crisis, raising its profile and becoming more useful to the countries, to the people.
I most sincerely commend the OECD for all the impressive work you have done over the last 6 decades to build better policies for better lives. We have been partners in many areas, supporting inclusive and sustainable growth and improvements in living standards.
The organization has always been a driving force behind the multilateral system that fosters global cooperation. A robust organization that helps to build and maintain a rules-based international system.
Because of the work of the last 10 years, we now have 84 million bank accounts worth 10 trillion euros that have been identified and exchanged. And there's nowhere to hide in the world because the taxman has your name and your account.
The ongoing efforts towards reaching a multilateral consensus-based solution to the tax challenges of digitalization is an excellent example of this unique role.
The work on tax avoidance, especially the initiative on base erosion and profit shifting BEPS, in which over 135 countries are engaged, presents an enormous opportunity for strengthening tax policy and tax administration in many developing countries.
The largest enterprises in the world don't pay taxes or pay very small amount of taxes. And now we have a revolution going on, and we'll be able to tax not only the largest digital companies in the world, but also the largest companies in the world, just junto.
We need cooperation to exchange information. The OECD is a good forum for this kind of cooperation. It is quite clear to me that if the OECD did not exist today, we would have to invent it.
But to further end the inequalities that many around the world face, we must first end the pandemic. And Canada believes that the OECD can be a driving force in strengthening multilateralism, supporting a strong recovery, and building a more resilient world.
It is clear that we must make international cooperation truly effective, not only to overcome the threat to our health, but also to promote a sustainable, inclusive, and resilient social and economic recovery.
Mr. Secretary General, your leadership has fostered global solidarity, and I'm confident that the OECD will continue to embrace multilateralism and mutual cooperation as we rise to the moment of our time.
The focus has changed from the growth to well-being. The focus has changed from productivity to the people. The men, the women, the children have to be at the center.
At a time when the world faces a devastating COVID-19 pandemic, the climate crisis and other severe challenges, the collective action enshrined in the OECD Convention is needed more than ever.
I believe that the pandemic is the most urgent enemy we have to fight. But I believe our single most important intergenerational responsibility is to preserve and protect the planet. Today, a growth that is not resilient, a growth that is not inclusive, and a growth that is not sustainable, meaning green, is not going to last for too long and is not going to be accepted by not only the powers that be, but by society.
L'OCDE s'est adaptée pour relever les défis de son temps. Sous votre conduite, Monsieur le Secrétaire général, elle a pris à bras-le-corps les nouveaux enjeux liés à la digitalisation de l'économie, l'enseignement, l'emploi, la lutte contre les inégalités.
In order to raise competitiveness and resilience of our societies, the transition to using modern technologies and digital solutions is crucial. We are convinced that this unused potential deserves serious attention also in the OECD forum.
Now we have 100 countries that are doing the new PISA cycle. And we've added digital competence. We've added how much of a citizen of the world are you? How well prepared are you to face the future?
C'est en vertu de cet engagement pour un multilatéralisme fort au service des biens communs que je veux saluer très chaleureusement l'action de l'OCDE, son engagement aussi pour des valeurs qui sont aussi les nôtres, l'inclusion, l'égalité, notamment l'égalité des genres, la dignité humaine.
The OECD is multilateralism in motion. The OECD perhaps illustrates, personifies, better than any other international organization, what multilateralism is about.
If we want to master the transformative possibilities of the pandemic, which are many, and mitigated socioeconomic costs, which are many too, we will need all our best minds working on these issues. And this is where I see the OECD continuing to provide services and to lead. As we chart our way out of this pandemic, the world will need your insight more than ever. And I'm fully confident that, as always, you will rise to the challenge.
The role of the OECD must continue to evolve to face these new challenges and deepen its role as the multilateral forum where new consensus are formulated and built. I am certain that the organization and all of you will be up to the task.
Pour être au rendez-vous des grands défis contemporains, les États doivent mieux coordonner leurs actions. L'OCDE devra continuer d'être une force motrice du multilatéralisme. Les normes souples montrent la voie en incitant plutôt qu'en imposant, et elles nous seront utiles dans le monde de demain.
What I hope is that this process continues to reproduce itself, that it's in fact encouraged and that it's enhanced, because that will enhance the relevance of the OECD in the future.
Okay, so that highlights the OECD, and as you saw in that video, if you joined us when I started 10 minutes ago showing the video, the overwhelming majority of those people interviewed were leaders of European Union member states, along with Moon Jae-in, president of South Korea, and Pierre Trudeau of France, Prime Minister Trudeau of France, of Canada, and so the European Union is overwhelming majority of the member states of the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, if you look at the membership of the OECD countries, and as I call that up here and make sure I screen share. So let me go to the screen share and screen share the OECD member states. So you can see the member states that belong to the OECD, and don't see Russia, do not see China. I see lots of American allies, including European Union countries, as well as South Korea, and Switzerland is not a member of the European Union. I believe Israel, of course, is in there. Iceland is in there. But most of the countries seem to be European Union member states, Australia. And so countries whose membership is under consideration by the OECD, Argentina, Brazil, Bulgaria, even though it's a member of the European Union, is not in OECD, Croatia, Peru, and Romania. I remember when South Korea joined, it was a point of pride. South Korea joined in 1995, I believe, when it joined the OECD, and it was the indicator to the South Koreans that South Korea was officially a developed country, And, in terms of social identity theory, it's nice to be in the advanced class among the states of the world. And so as we're attempting to address the challenges confronting the world, in terms of interdependency and globalization, and the pandemic is the most clear illustration of our global interdependency, that the well-being of the world, the rest of the world, it directly impacts on us, has always been true, as we mentioned earlier, but we also are clearly more aware of that ineluctable interdependency is more aware to more people because of what's going on with the rapid pace of change with the COVID-19 pandemic. The world is responding, and it's not just the European Union, but the European Union together with the United States are at the core of this response, not the only actors that need to respond effectively, but certainly the actors that are playing a leading role in dealing with global interdependency. And the European Union has this impact because the European Union has convinced the member states of the world community that the European Union is more or less an effective actor. So let me call up a file that I might have shown you a long time ago, which back at towards the beginning of the semester, which is a file which highlights the actual use of power in international diplomacy. When we talk about power, we talk about countries' capabilities, right? And when diplomats from European Union institutions or the European Union member states, like the European Union member states of Italy or Bulgaria, speak to each other or speak to United States or speak to New Delhi or Beijing, these diplomats use their leverage, their bargaining leverage that derives from the perceived power capabilities that their home headquarters has in the world. The amount of power and influence capacity, influence generation capacity those countries have in the world. And we highlighted this previously, for example, how when Bulgaria joined the European Union in 2007, its power capability in terms of its bargaining leverage increased greatly because Tripoli, the capital of Libya, under Muammar Gaddafi years ago, understood that when Sofia, Bulgaria asked Libya to free the the Bulgarian doctors and nurses being held hostage in Libya because Libya under Muammar Gaddafi was claiming that those Bulgarian nurses and doctors had spread HIV/AIDS in the hospitals among Libyan children, that when Bulgaria joined the European Union, little Bulgaria, a country of 7-8 million people, very poor, was able to increase its influence, its diplomatic bargaining influence, because it was a member of the European Union. So the Libyan diplomats and the Libyan government saw that this perceived ability to influence third countries that Sofia, Bulgaria had. What third countries? France, Italy, Germany, the other member states of the European Union, right? That boosted the diplomatic bargaining leverage of Bulgaria in the world. And this illustrates the impact of the European integration, to the extent to which people in the world or other actors in the world, in Beijing, in Moscow, in Tegucigalpa, in Seoul, believe that the European Union is a cohesive actor, then that also boosts the influence capacity, the diplomatic bargaining leverage of the member states in the European Union, in the world, in the entire world, in terms of addressing, for example, efforts to deal with global interdependency or the pandemic or regulating the global economy. And so the chapter that you're reading this week focuses on, and one way to understand all of that information is that the chapter that you're reading this week highlights the effort to convince the world that the European Union really is a cohesive actor. And so here you see how do you persuade the people of the world, the observers of the world, Beijing, Moscow, Tegucigalpa, New Delhi, that the European Union is real, and that when Sofia or Berlin or Rome or Athens speaks to Seoul or Beijing or anyone, that that country has a lot of influence in the world. You have to create that perception. You have to create that belief. And that goes back years, right? That goes back to the efforts to create the single market, to convince the world that, for example, when most recently, right, in terms of our debate topic today, when the European Commission begins selling bonds, Euro bonds on the global markets to gather 750 billion euros, or about $1 trillion worth of loans to give to the member states, that those buyers of those bonds, those investors all over the planet, they believe that the European Union will pay those bonds back. And they believe that because they believe that the European Union is cohesive. At least those countries that are, particularly those countries that are in the Eurozone, that once you're in the Eurozone, you're not leaving. And that the Greek debt crisis perhaps was the most critical element in persuading the people that this European Eurozone, that the Euro in the European Monetary Union, economic monetary, is real. And that that has increased, and that construction of that perception took many years of efforts of incremental progress, step by step, in economic and monetary union that began long ago, of course, but accelerated with the economic crises and challenges that the world faces. And so we have a debate today, by the way. So I have to keep in mind that we have to give at least, we have to give 30 minutes for that debate. So we're already at 11:10, and so we don't have much time. But we need to do what we need to do today. And so these notes highlight the steps towards economic and monetary union that were reached in 1999 with the launch of the Eurozone, going back to 1979 with the European monetary system as the first step to the countries of the European community, as it was called then, to work to make sure that the value of their currencies didn't move too much, that there was a margin that they couldn't vary in value, but they were going to work to keep the French franc and the German Deutschmark and the Italian lira, and the countries in the European Economic Community would keep the value of their currencies relatively constant, not completely, but relatively constant. And that set the stage for economic and monetary union 20 years later. when the euro was officially launched. So, and so these notes highlight the challenges these different kinds of countries face. With you have the more liberal model in the case of Ireland and Great Britain, and reflecting that liberal group-oriented approach to public policy-making analysis and the public policy-making process that we talked about last class, the liberal paradigm, which is also the group paradigm from the Danziger notes from another book that I brought up earlier in the semester. And that then there's the other groups of the European Union that the authors of the textbook talk about, either the more coordinated state role in coordinating the capitalist economy in Germany, in particular, versus this more state-led perspective on organizing the economy represented by Southern European countries, Spain, Germany, France. But those state-oriented perspectives, that more would fall, both of those subcategories under the corporatist paradigm, right? A paradigm is a general term that refers to a general theoretical philosophy or outlook in terms of how to understand public policy. The state must lead, right? The state is part of a corporate. Corporate means body, right? And the state is like the brain. You need everything else. You need workers, you need farmers, just like you need lungs and heart and everything in a corporate body for the body to exist and thrive, right? But the brain should provide coordination, right? And leadership. So, and that's the role of the state. And the Europeanization has impacted that process of European integration, while also borrowing and learning from each other, including the lessons from the United Kingdom under Margaret Thatcher to liberalize their economy because of the need to introduce greater labor market flexibility. That's the theme of the efforts that all of these countries have had to face. Beginning and most clearly illustrated by the supposed success of Margaret Thatcher's Great Britain to liberalize their labor markets, to make their labor markets more flexible, which means making it easier to hire and fire, hire and terminate workers. That means greater income differentiation between the more prosperous workers and the less prosperous sections of society. Greater labor market flexibility. How do you do that in a coordinated economy like in Germany? How do you do that in a state-led economy more like in France and Spain? And in these different societies, particularly in the continental European corporatist tradition, the workers are more oriented toward expecting the state to actively work to provide leadership. In the British case before Margaret Thatcher, the state just subsidized industries, but didn't really control the industry, just subsidized them, right? But there's more of an active role in corporate societies, in continental European societies, whether coordinated, state coordinated, or state led, for the state to provide actual management functions and for the entire corporate entity that is the nation state, okay? And so, but that's the key term that they face today, generating greater labor market flexibility, which includes also to make it easier for workers, because we're talking about very difficult lives for people, right? That they lose their jobs. You also have to play an important role in training your workers more effectively. The Germans are great at that, right? They're always promoting how their education system is most effective in training people, training students, children, young people to obtain careers. And that is kind of a challenge for those of us who are suspicious regarding assigning people to fortunes and journeys in life, that the German system, for example, identifies young people at a young age about, well, this person is probably more likely going to be a worker or a mechanic or a skilled craftsman. They're not going to become a college professor. And, whereas the American system is celebrated because every system's got its advantages and disadvantages, that the American liberal system is more open to people that are late bloomers, that you don't know necessarily how well or what their skills are until later in life. But again, so I have to make sure that we get to what we need to get to. So let me go back to the lesson plan here, and to remind you that we have a debate, and someone did sign up for the other open slot for pro. So In-hyuk Chon is going to present for pro against Sok-Ju Yoon. Another point I want to make is that this is the last paragraph that you have to submit. So your your final exam first draft is due, of course, Saturday. And then I'm going to write comments and send them back to you. And then I'm going to start meeting with you after the last class that we have on Monday. And so we're not going to have, obviously, a class a week from now, not a regular class. So there is no paragraph that you have to submit for next Wednesday. We're going to instead be talking about your final exam papers over a week beginning on Tuesday next week. So the paragraph that you wrote for this week is the last paragraph that you have to write. I will post the notes for the next class, the next chapter 19 today. So these are the notes for chapter 19 because I stated in the final exam assignment, you can use and cite information from the last half of the book. So here's the notes from chapter 19, which focus upon Europeanization and resistance to it, including European skepticism and European disintegration. And I'll talk more about that on Monday, but I will post the notes today. So if you're interested and you want to use them in preparing your final exam, you can. So here are those are the notes I'm showing you now from chapter 19, the conclusion of the textbook. And there's 9 pages of those notes. So I think we need to give enough time to the debate, and so I will go to the debate, and let's go back to Zoom here. Let's see, and stop share, and I am not in the debate, so I can keep time. So again, just to remind us of who the debaters are and what the debate topic is. So the debate topic is, to South Koreans, the European Union's pandemic response will accelerate Europeanization. And pro we have In-hyuk Chon and con is Sok-Ju Yoon. So you know the rules. Pro speaks for up to 6 minutes for its opening statement, and con speaks for up to 6 minutes from its opening statement. Then pro rebuts, then con rebuts and concludes, and then pro has the last word. So it's 6 minutes pro, 6 minutes con, then pro rebuts for 4 minutes, and then con rebuts concludes for up to 7 minutes, and then pro speaks for up to 3 minutes. But we're flexible on the time because you can ask questions if you would like. And so we also will allow them to screen share. But before we need to do that, we need to also do the attendance. And so let me go to the class website, and I knew I was going to forget something there. So let's go open that up and stop share, and let me screen share the attendance. And the attendance is for the class is week 14. Add smart attendance, and your number is 443. 443 is your number. 443. And so 443 is the number, and let me put that in the chat, 443, and close that. And okay, so again, screen share, go back to the lesson plan. So In-hyuk Chon and Sok-Ju Yoo. So In-hyuk Chon and Sok-Ju Yoo. Okay, so In-hyuk Chon and Sok-Ju Yoo are, okay, I want to write this down because I'm going to have to share the screen. So let me stop share and screen share, and it's advanced sharing options. And so I've now made it possible for all participants to share. And so In-hyuk Chon, you can begin.
Okay. Wait a second. I'll share my screen.
Okay.
I just prepared only 3 pages on PowerPoint, so
it's good.
Okay. Okay. Stop. Is
Fine.
Okay. Fine. Okay. Hi. I'm Inochan in Society Department. So in subject, I'm on pro side about today's subject. The European Union's COVID-19 pandemic economic crisis responsible accelerate Europeanization. Before I start, I make sure I cannot deny there are crises of Europeanization. The COVID-19 pandemic has destructive power on every social part, such as economy, politics, and even individual networks. To stop spreading virus, every country announced action plan. They are crossing their boundaries and legislating Rule 5 or limiting exports of medical equipment and masks. The whole plan carries out for the whole plan carry out for public health care and safe, but we have experienced side effects of these plans, such as decreasing social networking, economic slump, and Asian hatred. By social distancing, people are getting individualistic and selfish and nationalistic. It could stop Europeanization and increasing Eurosticks. But we have to know what is European Union doing in COVID-19 pandemic. While we're concerned about deepening nationalism and immigration crisis by COVID-19 pandemic, the European Union still try to keep Europeanization. For example, France and Germany has restricted exports of medical equipment and cross-boundary to focus on their domestic healthcare and service. But the European Union criticized their attitude and asked solidarity after that, and France and Germany reopened their boundary. Also, the European Council have decided to assist European countries that hit hardest by COVID-19 pandemic. My point is that by COVID-19 pandemic, the European disintegration is happening. It is true. But despite crisis of the European nation, the Europeanization won't stop, I guess. Still, the European Union try to keep integration. I expect COVID-19 pandemic will cause more powerful integration. Just like we cannot deny there are crisis Europeanization, also we cannot deny integration is helping to overcome pandemic crisis. Thank you.
Okay, anybody have questions? If nobody has questions, we will now go to Khan. Sokju Chon, you can now speak.
Okay, I sharing my screen. Okay, do you guys see my screen now?
Yes.
Yeah, this is Seokju Yoon, who belongs to Division of International Studies. So my opinion to this topic is calm. So I will start my presentation. The content for my presentation is first of all, I will introduce about the current situation of the EU's response and the reason number 1 and reason number 2, which are the citizens' distrust, and the last one is individuality by the member states. So this is the current situation of EU, and I divided the situation in 2 categories, which is the Eurozone economy and the plans for the economic recovery. So to sum up, it is showing the downward tendency in the aspect of Eurozone economy. There is double dip recession. The Eurozone shrank 0.6 in January to March, meaning that the double dip recession. And the Germany shrank 1.7 in Q1, and the Italian GDP down 0.4%. And also for the Spain's GDP fell 0.5% in January to March. And this credit is from the report of ING Bank. And second category is plan for the economic recovery of the EU. The EU will be busy with the recovery, not with the acceleration of Europeanization. And as there is a tendency of recession, the EU is expected to establish a proper plan for the recovery of the economy. And recovery and resilience plans are now submitted by the member states. However, it is still slower than the speed of the vaccination, considering that the confirmation of the EU. And this is the indication from the report of the European Commission. And this is reason number one for the con side, which is citizens' distrust. So beginning with the financial crisis of 2008 and Euro's sovereign debt crisis in 2010, Europeanization has become as much of a polarizing concept as globalization. And the crisis brought with it much deeper integration. Also, even member states not part of the Euro signed up to many of the legislative packages at today's treaty. But as member states lost room for maneuver in their national political economies and as growth faltered, the support for the euro as well as for EU declined. And even before this, the EU had begun to lose the benefits of the permissive consensus of the early years, replaced by the growing constraining dissensus, as citizens became increasingly disenchanted with EU-related policies generally. And this means that the citizens' distrust to EU is serious. And the reason number two is individuality by the member states. The financial crisis of 2008 and the sovereign debt crisis beginning in 2010 have constituted major challenges for the all European political economies, whatever the variety of capitalism. But the crises were handled differently and affected the member states differently. Some were hit hardest by financial crisis as their real estate bubbled first and the banks collapsed. Others were more affected by the euro crisis as the market lost confidence in the sovereign debt. Therefore, if the responses to the crisis is different from the member states, it will be hard to accelerate Europeanization and integration while trying to proceed the recovery plan for the EU. So this is the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Okay, if anybody has questions, you can ask them. I mean, there's a small group, so we don't need to use the chat function to ask questions. You can, if you want to ask a question on chat, or you can ask it or verbally. You're welcome to do so. Anybody? If not, then I will allow. Well, let's have pro rebut. In-hyuk Chon, you will rebut.
Sir, could you give me just a one minute to just
okay.
Prepare my story.
As we wait, let me know when you're ready. As we wait for those for the rebuttal, I wanted to highlight that the European Union is a core focus of the efforts by the United States to persuade the developed countries of the world, including South Korea and Israel, all of the members of the Organization for Economic and Cooperation and Development, the OECD countries, as you see referenced here, to agree to a basic same level of bottom level of corporate international multinational corporate taxation rates. The United States is promoting this at the G7 countries, but including, of course, also all of the members of the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. And again, the more liberal countries are opposed to this, have stated their resistance to this initiative, including Ireland, Hungary, and I got to make sure that you're sharing this, and the Czech Republic, that they are resistant to this. And Ireland, Hungary, the Czech Republic, and Ireland has been one of the most vocal critics. Remember, that's a liberal economy, according to the chapter that you're reading. Ireland has been one of the most vocal critics of the Biden proposal for a common minimum level of corporate tax rate. Ireland has a 12.5% corporate tax rate and has helped fuel the so-called Celtic tiger. We used to talk about the Asian tigers, so the Celtic tiger was Ireland. The Celtic tiger economy since the 1990s, luring Google, Facebook, and other corporate giants to establish European beachheads in Dublin, creating jobs and greatly enriching the Irish treasury. Pascal Donohoe, Ireland's finance minister, has said Dublin wants acceptable tax competition between the countries to continue. So they want tax competition to continue. I believe that small countries, and Ireland is one of them, need to be able to use tax policy as a legitimate lever to compensate for the advantage of scale, location, resources, industrial heritage, and a real material and persistent advantage that is sometimes enjoyed by larger countries, she said during a virtual summit meeting in April. And so this is proposed by the US Treasury Secretary, Ms. Janet Yellen. And of course, the more corporate state-oriented societies, France, Germany, and other high-tax European countries have agitated for what they say is an urgently needed tax revolution. So they like what Janet Yellen is calling for. And they're the more corporatist, state-oriented economies in the European Union. The European Commission last year proposed modernizing tax policies across the bloc as a way to keep pace with the digital economy, but countries have been unable to reach an agreement because it's the digital companies like Amazon and Facebook that they're able to set up subsidiaries in Ireland, for example, even though they do business across the entire world, not just in the European Union, but they don't pay taxes for doing business across the whole world because they're able to set up a subsidiary in Little Ireland. Governments across Europe fear their tax base will decline as more commerce moves online because digital businesses can rely on their subsidiaries in low tax countries to avoid paying taxes elsewhere in Europe. The European Commission estimates digital companies pay an average tax rate of 9.5%, compared with 23% for more traditional businesses. So my question to you is, please respond to the following statement. The European Union will ultimately agree with the US on a base corporate taxation rate, which will apply to the entire Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, which includes South Korea. Do you strongly agree, agree, neutral, cannot decide, disagree, or strongly disagree? So let me go back to the share screen here, and let me go to the vote and ask you to vote on whether or not you think the you agree, strongly disagree on whether or not this will happen. The OECD countries, including South Korea, will eventually all agree on a base corporate taxation rate to avoid the so-called race to the bottom. And so we can do that just for half a minute before we go back to our debate. And so 4 people have voted. I think a couple more people need to vote. Two agree, 1 strongly disagrees. Ireland will refuse, in other words, in Czech Republic and Hungary. Neutral cannot decide. Okay, neutral cannot decide. Are you going to be able to coerce, not coerce, but push Ireland and Czech Republic and Hungary that are really encouraging corporate investment by having exceptionally low corporate taxation rates? So, okay, so there's the results. So some of you think that the US will use its diplomatic bargaining leverage, and so will Paris and Berlin on Dublin, on Ireland, to get Ireland finally to agree, liberal Ireland, to agree to a more corporatist orientation about a European or OECD perspective on taxation rates. And of course, South Korea will probably definitely, because it's so closely allied with the United States and in its relationship also with North Korea, communist North Korea and communist China, that, yeah, I would think South Korea is going to agree, no problem, right? But the question is, what will Ireland do? And it's not just the Washington, D.C. putting the leverage, using its diplomatic leverage. It's also, of course, if I can show that file, it's also, of course, Berlin and Paris and the other countries to participate in that effort. So yeah, the bargaining leverage here, perceived influence of third countries, perceived trade opportunities, awareness of interdependence, public attitudes. Okay, so we'll see. We'll have a test. Okay, so let's go back to our debate, and so In Hyuk Chun will now rebut.
So my report is quite short. The European Union recovery plan is, I don't think we cannot divide the EU's economic recovery plan and accelerate Europeanization, because I still guess European Union's recovery plan is depending European integration, Europeanization. So when the countries they hit by hardest pandemic, they all now ask international society to help economic help. I think they all know that this international help thing is depending the Europeanization. So okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And any questions? Anytime you have a question, you can ask. I'm monitoring the chat box as well. And Khan will now rebut and conclude. Sokju Yun.
So first of all, may I answer for that rebut now?
Oh, sure. You can. This is your rebuttal for, and you conclude.
Yeah. Okay. So for your question, so I also agree with the integration of the Europeanization and the recovery plan of EU is related each other, but currently the Czech Republic submitted the recovery plan to the EU, so which means that the member states really want to do the recovery plan that every single national states are already made, and it means that the EU cannot lead the recovery plan as the main subject of the recovery. So I think that the integration will be a bit hard. And as you mentioned on your presentation, Germany already restricted immigration. And I think it also shows that member states just want to do recovery plan of its own style. Then how can the EU facilitate the integration?
Okay.
And end up with my rebuttal.
Okay. Anybody have a question? If not, In-hyuk, you are able to now conclude. You have the last word. Do you want to speak now or wait a minute or two?
I can say now. That's
okay.
my conclusion.
Okay.
So, first, just like I said in my opening statement, I don't want to deny there are crises of the European integration by economic slump, and just like Dr. Yun said, that citizen distrust is but my point is still we can still expect accelerating Europeanization after overcoming COVID-19 pandemic. That despite the economic slump, that all European countries still ask international society to have economic assistance, and after we can also imagine after pandemic, every countries can reopen their boundary and reopen their boundary and restart exports. So, and also finally, even there are crises of Europeanization, we have to know about the importance of Europeanization and integration still. So I think the Europeanization integration is still our goal to our society. So yeah, thank you.
Okay, last chance for any questions. If no questions or comments, let's go to the debate evaluation before I, comment further. And so we go back to vote, and let's see, share screen and make sure that I'm sharing the right screen and vote. Here is next task. Who won the debate? Pro or con? And so no more than 1 minute to vote on that. So already 4 people have voted. And so we don't need to spend too much time. So let me refresh. Is that everyone? I don't know. So maybe I think it may be everyone. I think it might be. Okay, all right. So, and there you see the results. And then the next vote is grade the debate. And this is also anonymous. So refresh, 1 minute. Whoosh. Look at the A pluses. Oh, wow. Okay. So, all right. So while we're still thinking about that topic, I want to show you some of the items that I downloaded from the internet, which highlight what the European Union is doing in terms of responding to the crisis. And so I want to share screen, and I want to show what I found here. And let's see if I can find it without spending too much time here while looking at my here we go. Okay, so for example, the European Union is, I said, mobilizing to spend lots of money on the coronavirus, so the European Union, for example, has agreed that it needs to evaluate and change the funding process for how they're going to fund this European Union Next Generation European Union is the name of the project. So you see, it's a council decision from December of last year, so about 6 months ago, urgently calling upon the member states. Each of the member states has to approve this in their parliament, not through a referendum, just through a parliamentary vote to amend the own process by which they fund the European Union in its budget, to allow the Commission to go about this process of raising $750 billion on international financial markets by selling bonds by the European Commission on behalf of the European Union. And they're moving very fast. And I think I have this here, I think I have it in the lesson plan. So let's see if I can find the lesson plan. If I can find it, maybe I can't. The speed with which these countries have moved to ratify this. So the countries have moved very quickly to ratify the council decision, but only a few countries are still have not yet ratified. As I've checked at the last time a couple days ago, Romania, Poland, Czech Republic, the countries that have the most nationalist hesitancies, they are still delaying, have not yet ratified this council decision. But it's only like 4 or 5 countries. And by the time I find it, the class will be up. So I'm not going to spend time looking for it. But let's see if I can find it very quickly here on what I have here. But I don't think I have it here right now that I can find it and show it to you. but it's available on the Europa website, on the European Union website. And so since you are preparing oh yeah, what is this? This is the announcement from April of this year, in which calling upon the countries of the European Union to ratify the Own Resources Directive. That's what it's called. The Next Generation Europe Diversified Funding Strategy the Commission adopted this morning will allow us to raise 800 billion euros in current prices between now and 2026. So here's the statement, and I'll post that, of course, also online. And I think I already showed you the decision. Yeah, here's the decision already. I showed you that. And that's moving forward, and they're calling upon the European Union member states to ratify that decision. As I mentioned, only a few countries are left. Most of them have already ratified the decision. So so in the few minutes remaining, I just wanted to highlight, that in terms of the final exam question, which you have, right, which is, if I can find it here, here is the final exam, right, that, and you should be able to see that here, that the question is, despite Brexit, Europeanization has generally increased opportunities for liberal democratic political participation by the citizens of the European Union member states. So liberal democratic means tolerant for the different motivations and intentions of people for their political and social interaction with you and me and everybody else. And people have different motivations at different times in their lives, right? If I'm a very hungry, desperate person, my motivations for interacting politically and socially with people are different from a rich, prestigious, well-known person who might, like Bill Gates, who want to give his money for altruistic purposes. They all have different motivations for engagement in political and social behavior. And that is something to keep in mind insofar as, for example, the different motivations that people have for political participation, that people's motivations can change over time. And if I try to find this, this file I wanted to show you here, if I can do this really fast, yeah, here it is, okay. So some of you have already seen this in another class, this Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I just wanted to highlight that if we're going to talk about liberal democratic participation, we need to accommodate the different motivations that people have. And Abraham Maslow was the theorist of psychology and social psychology, focusing upon the development of the individual within society. So the individual interacts with society to satisfy their needs, and their needs can be ranked on a hierarchy. Safety, to not be killed, to be safe physically. Security, to be able to make predictions about your ability to survive and thrive. In terms of, for example, basic food and needs. And environmental needs. And then once that need is satisfied, once these needs are satisfied, you focus upon the quality of your social relationships with people. And once you have a good, stable relationships in terms of emotional satisfaction, like a good family, good friendships, then you focus upon, people tend to move away and focus upon self-esteem needs. And that means interacting in society with your career, achievement, getting respect from people. And once you feel respect and you learn to like yourself, then you begin to be less concerned about what other people think about what you are, and you tend to focus on your own self-actualization, your own unique idiosyncratic potential. If you take management classes in business administration, you're going to hear all about Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? This is old stuff from the 1940s. And then depending upon where people are in terms of their needs, they show different behavior patterns. Somebody who's focused on these needs down here tends to will display more of a focus on loyalty to friends, family, nation. People that are more focused here upon, gaining some degree of respect and support, they will tend to be focused more upon these needs. People that are more focused on gaining self-esteem are going to be more adventurous, more career-driven, more ambitious. People here, again, focusing more on acquiring money and resources because money is power. And then once you satisfy those needs, we move towards empathy and respect. And so, of course, the European Union countries and the OECD countries, they tend to be more developed. So as they're more developed economically, people are more, they don't have to worry so much about whether or not they're going to be able to go to a doctor, right? Or they're going to be able to satisfy their need to eat, like you've faced today in Ethiopia, for example. I mean, Ethiopia, people are focusing upon survival right now and the war going on there in Afghanistan or elsewhere. So nationalism tends to associate with these needs, right? So liberal democratic participation has to accommodate nationalism, but other post-nationalist values as well. So I just wanted to highlight that. And of course, this is just a general framework for explaining how people change and develop as individuals and communities over time, right? We're born, we're socialized, we go through experiences, including taking European politics society course, and that affects a disturbance that affects the systematically linked elements in our personality to change our worldviews and our values. So, but we're already out of time. And so that's it for today. Does anybody have any questions? If not, then I will end the class and then I will post all these files and then I'll start meeting with you next week. Okay, bye.
One question, sir. One
yes.
question. So we have class on next Monday, right? That's what you said?
What? Yeah, Monday's our last class.
Oh, okay, got it.
Okay, cool. So Friday, I was told by the university that finals week begins on Tuesday and goes through next, for a week. So yeah, Monday's our last class. Okay?
Right, cool.
No paragraph next Wednesday. All right. So talk to you later. Bye.